she's given three specific things. That the Immaculate Conception will be declared a dogma, at a time when the Church is under attack, and in the text, when the Pope will find himself a prisoner. That the Assumption will be declared too, and that papal infallibility will be proclaimed by the same Pope who declares the Immaculate Conception. Three doctrinal declarations, named in advance by a nun in a convent in 1634. She died 5 weeks later. So, these are her prophecies. And if you go looking for this online, there are thousands of articles matching these prophecies to the last 60 years. But here's what actually happened afterwards. In 1854, Pope Pius IX declared the Immaculate Conception a dogma of Catholic faith. In 1870, the First Vatican Council declared papal infallibility. Same Pope, exactly as the text says. And that same year, Italian troops took Rome. Pius IX refused to recognize them, refused to leave the Vatican, and never set foot outside it again. He spent the last 8 years of his life inside those walls, and history calls him the prisoner of the Vatican. And the text says the Immaculate Conception would be declared when the Pope finds himself a prisoner. In 1950, Pius XII declared the Assumption. 3 declarations in the exact order that she gave them. And then there's everything after that. In 1962, the Catholic Church held a big meeting called the Second Vatican Council. It changed a lot of things. How Mass was said, what language it was in, how the Church talked about other religions. For some Catholics, that meeting is the moment everything went wrong. Now, read the prophecies again with that in your head. She said secular education would cause a collapse in the number of men becoming priests. Georgetown University has been counting priests in the United States since 1965, and this is the graph. She said marriage would be attacked. People read that as divorce law. And she said that when the Church needed him most, the man who should speak would stay silent. That gets read as a pope. Which pope depends entirely on who you ask. And then there's the prelate, the bishop she was told to pray for, the one who could maybe still fix it. A few years ago, somebody published a book arguing that man was Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. Lefebvre was a French archbishop who rejected the 1962 council, kept ordaining priests the old way, and got excommunicated in 1988 for making 4 bishops without permission from Rome. The book is 125 pages, and the chapter titles tell you the whole argument on their own. So this isn't people arguing in comment sections. A nun who died in 1635 is being named in print as having predicted the man who broke with Rome. Though there is something worth pointing out in all of this. The dates stop. End of the 19th century, shortly after the middle of the 20th. That's as far forward as she puts time on anything. What comes after that never gets a date at all. The war, the prelate, the restoration, Satan being dethroned, none of that is attached to a century. The war gets read as one that hasn't happened yet. A third world war or a civil war inside the church. The text says the blood of countrymen and foreigners and priests, which is an unusual thing to specify. The restoration gets connected to Fatima. In 1917, 300 years after Quito. Another apparition in another country that says something very similar. That there will be a period of suffering and then, in the end, her Immaculate Heart will triumph. Same shape, warning, crisis, and a resolution nobody has to wait for on a schedule. So Quito gets seen in a chain. Quito in 1610, Fatima in 1917, Akita in 1973. 3 warnings, all pointing the same direction, all ending with the same promise. So could it be about now, about 2026 or the coming years? Well, nothing in the text specifically says so. The dated material is explicit and it stops at the 20th century. Everything after it has no date, so it could be 2026 or 2027 or 2140. There's nothing in this document to check it against. Some people read it as unfolding now, while others treat it as already finished or never came true. Both readings fit the text, and that's the problem, because all the sources out there come from one person. His name was Manuel Sousa Pereira, a Portuguese Franciscan who arrived in Quito in 1777, 140 years after Mariana died. So he went